From the factory floor to the front lines, from the halls of power to the silent war in cyberspace. This is where America's future is decided. Welcome to Full Spectrum Frontiers, the podcast that explores the battles you see and the ones you don't. I'm Bennett Tanton, veteran, entrepreneur, and your guide through the shifting terrain of manufacturing, military strategy, the economy, politics, and culture. Here we cut through the noise, break down the threats, and shine a light on the opportunities that will shape the next chapter of our nation's story. This is Full Spectrum Frontiers. Hey folks, welcome back to Full Spectrum Frontiers, the show where we dissect the battlefield of modern life. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton, Marine Corps Recon veteran, Army Infantry veteran as well. Just a regular guy trying to hold the line between liberty and lunacy. Now, today's episode, this one's personal. This isn't just some deep dive on policy or another fire hose of outrage. This is a call to arms, not with rifles, but with reason. Not with protest signs, but with purpose. We're talking about restoring the Republic, and not in a clickbait 1776 will rise again kind of way. No. I mean, actually rolling up our sleeves. Veterans, workers, builders, educators, and asking, what would the founders do if they were alive today? If we resurrected Washington and handed him a smartphone with a news app open, would he weep or would he draw up another battle plan? If Jefferson saw the state of our schools, would he start a podcast or start a revolution? We'll get into that. Because the American experiment isn't over, it's under siege. From bureaucratic bloat to cultural rot, from digital censorship to civic ignorance, we are surrounded by 1,000 cuts to the Constitution. But guess what? We've been here before. Not in the same flavor, but in the same fight. The same battle lines between freedom and control, between personal responsibility and dependency, between a republic and everything else. This episode is going to break it down into 5 parts. The founders at the breakfast table. No fluff. Humanized look at what the early architects of liberty would actually say if they saw us now. Civics is the new rebellion, and how education became a battlefield and how we reclaim it from the inside out. Next, the oath doesn't expire. Veterans are once again on the front lines, just in different uniforms. Next, the entrepreneur as a revolutionary. Why building in the face of regulation is a sacred act of modern patriotism. And finally, how to teach kids to love the Republic without indoctrination, just truth. We're going to talk solutions, not symptoms. You'll leave this episode with tools, inspiration, and maybe a little righteous fire in your belly. And before we get rolling, do me a favor, hit that follow button, share this episode with one person who needs to hear it, and leave a review if you believe in what we're doing here. Algorithms matter more than we can admit, and I want this message to reach the Americans who've been quietly carrying the weight without recognition. The builders, the dreamers, the ones who haven't given up on this grand experiment we call liberty. So, let's get into it. Section 1. The founders at the breakfast table. So let's set the scene. It's 6:30 a.m. You've got George Washington sitting in your kitchen, sipping strong black coffee from a chipped mug that says, "Don't tread on me." Jefferson's scrolling through Twitter, and his face has gone pale. Franklin just asked Siri to define influencer, and now he's pretending he didn't. Adams is furiously scribbling notes and muttering, "We bled for this?" It sounds like satire, but imagine it seriously. What would the founders say if they woke up in the modern United States of America? Would they recognize this place? And more importantly, what would they do? A republic, if you can keep it. Let's go back to Ben Franklin's most famous mic drop. A republic, if you can keep it. He said it walking out of the Constitutional Convention in 1787. And it wasn't a flex. It was a warning. Franklin, like the others, knew that liberty isn't self-sustaining. It has to be defended, not just with muskets and manifestos, but with minds, with education, with civic virtue, with people willing to live free, not just talk about it. Fast forward 236 years, and the experiment is shaky. Congress is bloated. The administrative state is a leviathan, and most Americans can't even name the 3 branches of government. We've got rights we don't understand, freedoms that we don't use, and responsibilities we keep outsourcing to people who actively resent this country's founding principles. Jefferson would have flipped his wig, literally. We gave you tools, not tyrants. So what would they say? Here's my take, rooted in their own words and writings. Washington would call for virtue. That man believed the republic couldn't stand without moral discipline and public service. He'd be appalled by the cult of personality politics and would probably warn us against trading liberty for comfort again. Jefferson would say education is everything, and we've blown it. He believed the nation that expects to be ignorant and free expects what never was and never will be. He'd demand curriculum that actually teaches what freedom costs and why it's worth it. Adams would lose his mind over the erosion of the rule of law and the rise of mob mentality in public discourse. He feared democracy without virtue would devolve into tyranny. He'd probably ask why half the country is governed by executive order and unelected bureaucracies. Madison, the architect of the Constitution, would probably grab a napkin and start sketching out a plan to restore checks and balances, maybe even rein in the administrative state with some 21st century amendments. And I have a feeling he'd have strong words about surveillance, big tech, and how our digital rights are treated like privileges instead of protections. And Franklin, he'd throw out your smart speaker, your Alexa, your Google, whatever, chuckle darkly, and ask how many Americans actually read the damn Constitution before demanding rights they don't understand. Their North Star was liberty. Ours should be too. Look, these men weren't perfect. They were flawed, complicated, and yes, deeply human, but they built something extraordinary because they understood human nature. They knew that power corrupts. They knew government doesn't restrain itself. And they knew that if the people ever stopped caring, the republic would rot from the inside out. Here's the gut punch. We are those people. Not the elites, not the career politicians, us. Veterans, parents, workers, entrepreneurs, pastors, tradesmen, and educators. The ordinary Americans who've quietly kept this country stitched together while the professional class plays Hunger Games on Capitol Hill. And here's what I think the founding fathers would actually say. We gave you the blueprint. You're just not using it correctly. Modern tyranny looks different, but it's just as dangerous. No, we're not living under King George, but we are surrounded by soft tyranny. No, we're not living under King George, but we are surrounded by soft tyranny. Like Tocqueville wrote, an immense and tutelary power. A government that wraps itself in concern and care while slowly draining the citizen of agency. One rule, one form, one tax, one surveillance contract at a time. We trade freedom for convenience, we give up privacy for safety, and we tolerate incompetence because the bureaucracy is too tangled to uproot. The founders didn't have the internet, but they knew tyranny when they saw it. And what we're dealing with now, it's just digital redcoats. The founders wouldn't be shocked. They'd be activated. They wouldn't be surprised. We ended up here. Honestly, they expected it. Read the Federalist Papers. They knew the system would be tested. They just hoped we'd be brave enough to fix it when the time came. That time is now. And no, we don't need a powdered wig or a printing press. You need a backbone. You need the truth. You need a fire that says, not on my watch. Restoring the Republic doesn't mean burning it all down. It means remembering what made it beautiful in the first place and having the guts to reclaim it. One action, one conversation, one school board, one business, one act of civil courage at a time. You still with me? Good. Civics is the new rebellion. Let's start with the painful truth. We stopped teaching Americans how to be Americans. Not in a flag-waving, fireworks blasting, bald eagle screeching kind of way. I mean, we stopped teaching people what the Republic is, how it works, why it's different, and why that difference actually matters. You want to restore the Republic? You have to start in the classroom. The quiet coup and how we lost our civic identity. The founders made it crystal clear. Education wasn't just about reading and writing. It was about forming citizens. Jefferson once said, an educated citizenry is a vital requisite for our survival as a free people. Key word, free. Not entertained, not placated, free. So what happened? Over the past 60 years, we gradually replaced civic education with what I'll call compliance training. The kind of schooling that teaches kids how to pass tests, follow rules, and regurgitate state-approved narratives. We stopped asking kids to think critically and started teaching them to sit quietly. We traded wisdom for worksheets. We removed the stories of sacrifice and replaced them with slogans for self-esteem. And here's the kicker. In the vacuum of civic identity, ideology moved in. Loud, fast, aggressive. We went from teaching the Bill of Rights to teaching whatever someone thought was socially just this month. Education is not neutral and never was. Let's get this straight. All education is indoctrination. The question is, what are you indoctrinating people into? Are you instilling a love of liberty, a sense of personal responsibility, the duty to serve, the courage to ask tough questions? Or are you pumping kids full of passive victimhood, political slogans, and historical revisionism wrapped in TikTok sound bites? We've treated K through 12 and higher ed like sterile, neutral environments, but they're just not. They're culture factories. And for the last couple decades, that factory's been hijacked by folks who see the Constitution, frankly, as a speed bump, not a foundation. Case in point, most Americans can't even pass the citizenship test. Let that sink in. Most Americans can't pass the citizenship test. In a 2022 survey, only one in 3 native-born Americans could pass the U.S. citizenship test. The same one immigrants have to take to become citizens. Yet, those same people vote. They serve on juries, and some of them run for office. If you can't explain the First Amendment, what the First Amendment protects, or what checks and balances actually do, how can you recognize when those things are being undermined? Spoiler alert, you can't. And that's the whole game. Keep people ignorant of their rights long enough, and eventually they'll stop defending them. Bright spots. Okay, here we go. Who's doing it right? Thankfully, the tide is turning, and not a minute too soon. Programs like the Lyceum Scholars Program at Clemson University are stepping up to fill the void. These programs don't indoctrinate, they educate. Students study the Constitution, classical liberalism, moral philosophy, and political economy, not from a partisan lens, but from a freedom-first foundation, the kind the founders dreamed of. And it's not just Clemson, Hillsdale College, University of Austin, and even independent curriculum movements like the 1776 Project or Classical Conversations are rebuilding education from the ground up. They're giving parents and students tools to think again, to challenge, to question, to stand firm in the face of cultural gaslighting. So what do we do to reclaim K through 12, the real front line? Seriously. It's easy to rant about universities, but let's be honest, by the time a kid hits college, the worldview is mostly baked in. The real battleground, kindergarten through 12th grade. We need civics from day one, not just memorizing the pledge, but understanding the ideas behind it. The founding documents as required reading. Let kids wrestle with the Declaration of Independence. Let them see the Constitution as a living challenge, not a dead relic. Critical thinking over critical theory. Teach how to think, not what to think. Parental involvement. This is not, don't say anything, territory anymore. Your kids are the mission. You want to disrupt the system? Run for your local school board. Sit in on curriculum meetings. Ask those uncomfortable questions, because the people shaping your child's mind today are shaping your country tomorrow. And if you want to challenge the culture, start with the curriculum. Education isn't just about facts. It's about formation. It's about who we become. The founders knew that. So did Abraham Lincoln, who said, "The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next." Let me say that again. The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. We're not just failing kids when we teach them that America is irredeemable. We're failing the entire future of liberty. So what do? We build. We build alternative programs. We support civic-minded educators who show up at school boards. We vote for reform. We write curriculum. We teach our kids at the dinner table what it means to be free. And we don't outsource the next generation's understanding of freedom to people who frankly don't value it. Because if we don't teach them to love the republic, someone else will teach them to tear it down. So next up, the oath doesn't expire. We're going to talk about how veterans are becoming the tip of the spear again, this time on the home front. The oath doesn't expire. There's a moment that sticks with every veteran. Maybe it's during boot camp. Maybe it's standing at attention with a hand raised. Maybe it's later, after the dust settles. But it's that moment when the oath becomes real. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Notice something? It doesn't say until the end of your enlistment or until your last deployment. It doesn't say unless it gets politically inconvenient. And it damn sure doesn't say as long as everyone likes you for it. That oath, it sticks. It brands your soul with purpose. Defend liberty. And now, with the Republic under siege, not from foreign invaders, but from apathy, decay, and soft tyranny, veterans are realizing something. Their war didn't end. It just changed terrain. From battlefield to the boardroom. Let's get this straight. Veterans aren't saviors, but they are unique. They've seen how fragile life is. They've watched tyranny up close. They understand chain of command, yes, but more importantly, they understand what happens when you give up your rights to a benevolent state. They've fought in broken nations. They've guarded voting booths in countries where ballots were once bullets. Now, so when they see what's happening here, indoctrinated kids, weaponized agencies, censorship parading as safety, they feel it. And a growing number of them are standing up again. But this time, the battlefield looks different. It's the school board. It's the county commission. The business startup that refuses ESG compliance. The nonprofit that teaches constitutional literacy. The podcast, the Substack, the town hall. This is a different kind of warfare. Information, culture, values, but the same kind of courage is needed. Tactical patriotism. The new mission set. And this isn't about nostalgia. It isn't about waving a flag harder. This is about strategy, precision, fire support for the soul of a nation. Here's what that looks like in action. Veterans for America First. These guys aren't storming the Capitol. They're mentoring, leading local campaigns, organizing veteran voices around policy and principle, not party. I'm going to say that again, not party. Save Our Allies, started by veterans who couldn't stomach how we abandoned Afghan allies. Seriously, disgusting. This organization embodies what military ethos really means. No one gets left behind. It's the mission, still active. Organizations like Team Rubicon, disaster relief, sure. But the real win is restoring meaning to lives post-uniform. They remind us that purpose didn't retire with the DD-214. Finally, and my favorite, entrepreneurship. From coffee companies to tech startups, vets are leveraging their operational mindset to build liberty-loving businesses that push back against woke capitalism. I'll say it, woke capitalism and federal overreach. There's a phrase I've heard in veteran circles. We're not done yet. No, sir, we're not. Leading by example, again. The military drilled a few things into us. Mission first. Don't quit. Lead from the front. And that's exactly what veterans are doing now. They're not begging for culture to change. They're forcing it to by standing in the gaps, speaking truth, starting something real. Because for us, freedom isn't theoretical. We bled for it, buried friends for it. We carry it like a sacred trust. And let me be clear, you don't need to run for office to make a difference. You don't need to start a foundation, but you do need to live like the oath still matters. Talk to your neighbors, show up in the community, mentor the kid down the block, mentor your own children. Start that blog, write that book, launch that side hustle. Be the American the founders would be proud of, and the kind of warrior this country still needs. We've been silent too long. So here's the real talk. We gave up too much ground. Well, we were transitioning, healing, raising families, and trying to find peace. The other side never stopped. They marched through institutions. They rewrote civics. They normalized cowardice as compassion. They built a culture where freedom is a threat. Are you serious? It's America. Freedom is a threat, not a virtue. But here's the thing. They underestimated us because now we're awake. Now we've got a different kind of fire and the oath. It's still echoing. Next up, the entrepreneur is a revolutionary. How builders and business owners are becoming the new front line in defending liberty through innovation, risk, and grit. The entrepreneur is a revolutionary. And if you think the revolutionary spirit died with powdered wigs and parchment, well, let me introduce you to the 21st century rebel, the American entrepreneur. Not the tech bro chugging Soylent in a WeWork, okay? Soylent Green. It's a movie. Check it out. I'm talking about the blue-collar builder, the small-town coffee shop owner, the rancher launching a meat subscription box to fight factory food systems, the guy starting a garage-made supplement brand because he doesn't trust what Big Pharma is pushing. These people, they're insurgents in khakis. there fighting tyranny with LLCs and S Corps. Let's break it down. Why building is a revolutionary act. Entrepreneurship isn't just about making money. At its core, it's an act of defiance. You're creating something that wasn't there before. You're saying, I will not be dependent on your system. You're opting out of the matrix and building your own damn table. When you start a business in America today, you're doing three things the machine hates. By all means, it's a machine, folks. You're claiming agency, which terrifies authoritarians. You're creating value without begging for permission. And you're putting yourself in a position of actual influence, not just social media bluster. That's power. Quiet power, subversive power, the kind that doesn't need slogans because it's busy getting things done. Regulation is the new redcoat. Here's the other thing: entrepreneurs are increasingly the target of modern bureaucracy. If the founders had King George's redcoats kicking in their doors, today's builders face crippling regulation. Weaponized compliance departments, federal agencies enforcing ESG and DEI like it's their divine law, shadow bans for wrong thinkers, payment processors ghosting small brands for having the, in quotes, wrong opinions. It's death by 1,000 digital cuts, and yet builders keep building. Because they know something. Freedom doesn't scale through permission. You've got to carve it out brick by brick while the system tries to duct tape your hands together with red tape. Real life patriots in action. Let's talk examples. Love them or hate them, Black Rifle Coffee. They built a counterculture brand by owning who they were and are. They didn't wait for Starbucks to approve. Public Square, a marketplace built for businesses that don't want to be bullied by woke capitalism. They're not fighting cancel culture with tweets. They're fighting with infrastructure. And the big one to me, homesteaders, ranchers, and local meat co-ops, local food co-ops, farmers markets. These folks are decentralizing the food system, removing middlemen, and ensuring food security isn't controlled by three conglomerates. Veteran-owned companies. So many of them start because vets want purpose, not just a paycheck. They build to serve again, this time with tools instead of weapons. These aren't just brands. They're fortresses of liberty, one customer at a time. The resistance is profitable. We don't talk about this enough, but entrepreneurship is the most scalable form of peaceful resistance. It builds wealth outside the system, creates parallel economies, gives people choices that align with their values, chips away at corporate capture culture. And here's the big one. It works. You don't need to storm the gates when you can build a better gate next door. It's not about destroying the system with fire. It's about making it irrelevant with function. You can't cancel what you don't control. So how to get into the fight without going broke? Now, maybe you're thinking, I'm not ready to quit my job and launch an empire. Well, cool. You don't have to. Start small. Buy from small businesses that share your values. Support creators, not corporations. Use platforms that don't censor speech. Learn a trade, a craft, or a service. Sell something, anything, a book, a product, a skill. Build some stream of income that the system doesn't own. The more value you produce, the less control they have. You don't need to be Elon Musk. You just need to be brave enough to bet on yourself. The spirit of 1776 is still alive in your garage, and the founders were entrepreneurs. They risked everything to start a new venture called the United States of America. They didn't wait for approval. They didn't ask King George for better terms. They built a new world with faith, grit, and ink on parchment. You have better tools than they did. You've got the internet, capital networks, 3D printers, Shopify, Stripe, Substack, and YouTube. So what's stopping you? Because let me be blunt. If you don't build our world, they'll build one for us. And we probably won't like the terms. So next up, how to teach a kid to love the Republic without indoctrinating them. Let's talk about the next generation and how we get this fire to spread without burning down the house. All right. How to teach kids to love the Republic without indoctrinating them. So, we've walked through the founders, the failing state of education, the resolve of veterans, and the grit of entrepreneurs. But none of that matters if we lose the next generation to apathy, guilt, or revisionist garbage dressed up as social progress. Let's not mince words. We are in a battle for the American mind. Not the adult mind, the child's. The other side knows it. That's the kicker. That's why they got to the curriculum first. That's why they write the textbooks, fund the teachers' unions, and push ideology under the banner of inclusion and equity. So how do we respond? With truth, with honor, with courage, and without becoming what we're fighting against. So first, let's define the goal. The goal isn't to raise little patriots who just parrot back slogans and salute the flag out of blind loyalty. The goal is to raise critical thinkers who understand why the Constitution matters, what freedom actually costs, where our values come from, and how to spot tyranny when it's wearing a friendly smile. We're not programming bots here. We're raising citizens. That means teaching kids to love the Republic, not because it's perfect, because it sure isn't, but because it's worth fighting for. Now, love begins with understanding. And let's be real. You can't love something that you don't understand. And most kids today don't understand America at all. They're fed a steady diet of America as oppressor, as colonizer, as systematically irredeemable. No context, no nuance, no mention of the ideas that made this country different from every empire that came before. You want a kid to love America? Don't sugarcoat the past, but don't hide the light either. Teach them the failures and the triumphs. Show them the contradictions and the courage. Point out the hypocrisy, but don't forget the heroism. Because when you give a kid the full picture, they'll find pride on their own. And pride earned is always stronger than pride imposed. Let me say that again. Pride earned is always stronger than pride imposed. So what are the tools? What and how to teach, right? Here's the good news. You don't need to wait for school boards to approve your lesson plan. You can start at the kitchen table right now. Books. The Tuttle Twins for younger kids. The 5,000-Year Leap, 1776 by David McCullough. Biographies of Washington, Douglas, Harriet Tubman, Adams, Hamilton, King. Documents like the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. Yes, the real one. That's something else, but not for this episode. The Federalist Papers. Simplified versions do exist, okay? Media and resources that you can use. Hinsdale College's free K-12 curriculum. PragerU Kids. The 1776 Unites Project. The Real American History podcasts, like yours truly, might soon start for kids. And when you read these with your kids, ask questions. What do you think they meant by life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Why do you think free speech matters? Should people be allowed to disagree and still live in peace? Turn the lessons into conversations. Let curiosity do the work. Teach values through stories. Facts are fine, but stories stick. Want your kid to respect freedom? Tell them stories about people who fought for it. Want them to understand responsibility? Show them the farmer who became a general, who became a president, then walked away from power. Want them to value hard work? Talk about immigrants who showed up with nothing and built legacies, about civil rights leaders who changed the world without firing a shot, about single moms who kept the family alive with grit and grace. Kids don't learn patriotism from PowerPoints. They learn it from narratives, from heroes, from watching you live what you preach. Don't just teach, model it. You can't teach love of country if you're consistently trashing it. You can't teach respect for the Constitution if you treat elections like reality shows and the other side like enemies. You can't teach dignity if your kids never see you serve. Model it. Let them watch you vote. Let them see you stand for something. Let them hear you say no when the world says, just go along with it. Cook a meal and talk about freedom. Watch the fireworks and explain what they actually mean. Let them ask hard questions and don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Let's learn that together. Patriotism isn't passed on by accident. It's built moment by moment, word by word, action by action. The Republic lives or dies with the next generation. So here's the hard truth. If we don't raise kids who love liberty, someone else will raise them to hate it. And once that happens, everything else we do, voting, building, fighting, it becomes damage control. So let's get ahead of it. Start the conversations early. Refuse to outsource your child's worldview. Choose materials that challenge and inspire. Be bold. Be present. Be the kind of American you hope your kid becomes. Because the Republic doesn't need more cynics. It needs guardians. All right, my friends. That brings us to the last leg of this journey. Rise and rebuild. If you've made it this far, I thank you. You didn't just tune into the podcast episode. You stood watch over the soul of a nation for the last hour. And I want you to sit with that for 1 second. Because what we talked about today, it's not just opinion. It's not just history. It's not just politics. It's your inheritance. The founders gave us a framework. Veterans have defended it. Builders are sustaining it. But it's up to you to carry it forward. Maybe you're not running for office, and maybe you're not starting a school. Maybe you're just trying to raise your family, make your business work, and stay sane in the world that feels increasingly upside down. But you matter more than you know. Your values, your voice, your courage. That's how the Republic survives. That's how it thrives. Because restoring this nation isn't about one big moment. It's about 1,000 small, quiet ones. It's the conversations at the dinner table. It's standing your ground at a PTA meeting. It's choosing a mentor instead of mock. It's reading the Constitution before you debate online. It's showing up even when nobody claps. This isn't about nostalgia. It's about revival. And let me say this clearly so it rings in your soul. You were born for this time, not to watch it burn, but to help rebuild it. Not to whine, not to warn, to work and to win. So let's do that. So here's your final orders. And if this episode stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Like, share, review, subscribe to the podcast. Send this to your old squad, your high school civics teacher, the guy down the road who flies the flag every morning, and your friend who's just waking up to how deep this rabbit hole goes. This podcast grows because you guys help it grow. And if you believe in this mission of bringing clarity to chaos, truth to tyranny, and hope to the front line, then partner with me. Support the show. Spread the word. Be the spark in your circle. Because this isn't just a podcast. This is Full Spectrum Frontiers, where liberty lives and the Republic is still worth defending. Until next time, hold the line.
In the fiercest battle, I'll defend you from all these arrows, and the sword I wield will keep you from danger. Let me be your shield.
Yeah. It's just you, me, and the odds. We stuck together, we two peas in a pod. You dealt a bad hand, I'm there seizing the cards. We'll never be separated till we see in the gods. We've been low together, high forever. Long as we go together, we'll die whenever. Be a light, couldn't let the darkness try you ever. Truth in my word, you I lie to never. And when the world gets a little too hard, wipe your eyes, put away your sorrow. When it's war, I'll be leading the charge, and I'll be still fighting for you tomorrow. Yeah, even with a blindfold or in different time zones, could find my way to you with my eyes closed. There's nothing between us. Go to Mars and Venus, stand in front of every one of them boxes.